The 22nd of July 2025, Real to Education, not fake news here. Now, on the meeting proposed and called for 7:30 on the 23rd, that's tomorrow, Wednesday, the 23rd of July 2025, by Sinn Fein, attended by Pierce Doherty, Matt Carthy, Pauline Tully, and Cathy Bennett. It's no harm to raise awareness of it anyway. It's no harm to have a bit of a discussion going on. And I've given you my views on what questions to ask and what to look for. See how questions are allowed. They may allow them all right, and I'm trying to point you to the questions. It's not a disaster if they don't answer them, if they don't have all the information that's looked for there and then. The main point is to find out what Sinn Féin's attitude to Irish neutrality is. Now, the way Irish neutrality manifests itself is there is what they call the triple lock. The first is the Dáil Éireann has to approve it by a majority. I think it's a 50-50, over 50%. It doesn't really matter. They have to approve it anyway. Okay. So that's just the ordinary TDs, not the senators. The next lock is that the government, the Taoiseach, the Tánaiste, the Deputy Taoiseach, Deputy Prime Minister, in other words, for those who use English, the Deputy Prime Minister, the Prime Minister and the Ministers have to approve it in Cabinet. There has to be a Cabinet meeting and they have to approve it. Okay, that's the second thing. So that's all within Ireland. But the other one is without Ireland. The United Nations Security Council comprises 5 members: the United States, Russia, China, Britain and France. They're essentially the nuclear power states they were back a few years ago, back a couple of decades ago. Now, the problem there is that any one of them can veto it. There has to be unanimous support from the Security Council. Now, traditionally, Irish troops, I'd say Gardaí as well, going to the Lebanon, going to Israel, or not Israel, Cyprus, going to Cyprus, going to Lebanon is the 2 main places I remember them going. And that was approved. Once they're above 12 in number, you can send 9 or 10 troops, but you can't send 12 or 13. I think you can send 12, but 13 can't go. In other words, you couldn't send a battalion away or a platoon or anything. Once it's over 12, you need the triple lock. The consent of the Dáil, without the Senate, the approval of the Cabinet, the government, and the approval of the United Nations Security Council, of which Russia and China, Britain, France and the United States are the permanent members, rightly or wrongly. Now, the problem is that once Ireland was going as peacekeepers, there was no real enemy, and so there was no real problem getting Russia and China to agree to let them go off. There was no problem there. But now it's been proposed that the Irish go there as combatants. And if they go as combatants, there'll be an enemy. And at the moment, it's considered that the enemy will be Russia. For now, anyway. So they're going to have to shoot the Russians. And because they have to shoot the Russians won't approve. They will not approve of the Irish going over, obviously, to Ukraine to shoot their people. So you can never get the Irish going there. And that doesn't suit the European Union. So the move is on to get rid of the General Assembly veto. Sorry, the Security Council veto. The General Assembly is the general membership, but it has to be the 5 members of the Security Council that form the triple lock. And that's the problem. Russia will say no, and China would almost certainly say no. So they're trying to get away from that altogether and remove the veto from the United Nations and put it in the hands of the European Union. And by definition, NATO. Now, we didn't join NATO. We're not in NATO. We joined the European Union, and I've no doubt if the people at the time had known that we'd be joining NATO, they would vote no. So it's a highly contentious issue and one which I would be against. Now, up to now, when NATO is in combat, when they're at war, or they're doing some operation, they're always under the command of a United States commander and general. There's always a United States in charge. So if you take the Iraq invasion, General Norman Schwarzkopf was the head beetler. It's the United States is always the leader in the military operation. That doesn't mean there can't be British people there and French and others, but the United States is always on top. Now that will continue, but there's now evidence that Trump is moving away from NATO. The German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, has said that America is abandoning more or less NATO, Germany and Europe, and by definition NATO. So that means that we could have combat operations without the Americans. And that begs the question, what country will provide the leadership? Will it be a British general? Will it be an Irish general? Or will it be a French general? Not be Irish, I'd say. Will it be a German general or Italian general? Who'll lead it? And that's a big problem. It could be a Dutch leader, commander. So this is a big thing. Now then, if you have somebody from, we'll say Fermanagh joins the Irish Army and is serving away happily in the Irish Army, and he's suddenly sent off to fight in Ukraine, he could find himself under the command of a British officer. So these are things to be considered and to be teased out at these meetings. I'd say most of my subscribers here would not want the Irish getting involved in such an adventure. They'd want the triple lock maintained. But the triple lock is very, very tight. I mean, the problem is, if it's a friend of Russia or China you want to go up against, they're not going to agree, and that's that. So have I explained that fairly good? I hope you have the grasp of it. Now we have currently a triple lock system which will not let more than 12 Irish troops go into another country for combat or any of those duties without even peacekeeping, without the consent of the United Nations, the UN Security Council, which has to be unanimous. That worked all right till now, but now that they're talking about deploying them in the Ukraine, they won't get the consent of Russia and possibly China. So the idea is to change that and remove the UN from it, allowing the Irish government to send troops to Ukraine, or it could be Taiwan, could be anywhere, could be probably the Middle East, I don't know, but wherever they want. So that's what's an issue here. That's the thing to debate. That's the thing to see how it's going to go. We'll see you back soon. I hope I've clarified that a bit for you. Bye-bye and thank you.